Hey guys, whenever I lecture, I like to also have a lab immediately following that. I guess being the son of a Methodist minister, I like to practice what I preach. And the best place to practice something new is with another professional. So what you're getting ready to see me do is practice with one of my favorite people in the world. I have my oldest daughter, Jessica, as a strength coach. We're both pretty hypermobile. That means we usually fight way more stability problems than mobility problems. Even though we feel tight, stiff, and sore, we test on the hypermobility scale. Now, I want to talk to you about the way her and I are interplaying exercise. She's playing the role of the victim or the client, but I'm using these 3D stabilization strategies, not so much as a screen or an evaluation. I'm sort of blending it. Right after I've screened her and found some stability problems or balance problems or movement problems, I take her right into 3 different phases of training. Now, one is just unbelievably ground-based, one is transitional-based, quadruped and kneeling, and one is standing-based. So you're going to see me take her all the way through there, but I'm using each of these exercise challenges, which is exactly what I do with rotational athletes that are rehabbing. Spine, concussion injuries that are rehabbing, post-core surgeries anywhere, hernia, C-section, spinal surgery, and for people like Jesse and me who are hypermobile. So everybody usually wants to make exercise so compartmentalized to a particular activity. This is the way I approach 3D stabilization and work up through it using the ABCs. Awareness, breathing, and control. So I'm always playing her awareness of asymmetry or difficulty against which breathing pattern did you choose and how did that change your control. So watch along with us, play along with us, and when you try these activities, find another pro, do them together, you'll find out which ones are going to serve your population the best. I want to start with something that you already teed up. This is a safe space. And we like to practice stuff in a safe space. And I keep this in my office because it's really easy for those of us in rehab, exercise, fitness, or whatever to comment on stuff before we actually vet it. And I'd like to introduce Jessica. My daughter has been here sort of in a safe space. We've been vetting stuff because she's in a wellness space as a strength coach working with hypermobile people, people that are stability challenged from birth, but also in pain. And so we highly value holds and carries. Holds literally put you in a spine-loaded position where many people immediately start holding their breath. And what we end up doing is overcoaching the technique and undervaluing the fact that they came to the posture already challenged. Sometimes we do a typical fitness maneuver and just go lighter in weight when really we should go down in posture. Down in posture so much that now all we're coaching is breath, letting them feel the nuances of the technique. So Jesse and I have mapped out a couple of on-ramps to holds and carries. Holds and carries are great, and if your movement screen or SFMA is already pain-free and fairly mobile, the holds and carries are some of the best warm-ups that are often underutilized. But I'm gonna demonstrate holds and carries real quick using Jesse. So if you'll go tall kneeling, just grab that Y bell right there and show us a tall kneeling hold. Start up front, go behind your back, and we're just basically getting comfortable right here with a kettlebell, a sandbag, any type of weight you could hold. We let people feel it up front because they feel like they're upright until it goes behind, and then you really see the ear, the shoulder, the hip line up. A lot of people aren't comfortable here at first. They're too much into their quads. Their pelvis is really trying to run the show, being anterior tilted or not. So one of the first things we do is just a gentle rotation left and right. And if they're already breathing well, that's fine. But if they're not, I don't say a word. I let them just explore both sides. Most people are going to have one side that's easier or more difficult than the other. Let them comment on that. And then you've got 2 ways to play the breathing. Do your turns on an inhale. If you need to cycle a breath once you get to the end, that's fine. Or if you just want to exhale back to the start and then do the same on the other way. Now, usually we find out that inhaling on anything that puts the spine in further extension for somebody who's poorly organized, it helps them a little bit. It's almost the reverse of a fitness load where we exhale on the exertion. But I'm going to get people to try both, because as long as they're trying both, they're not holding their breath. And so instead of saying don't hold your breath, I say see which breath sequence makes the movement easier. We're going to use that again and again and again. So right here at holds, I can do this half kneeling or tall kneeling, or I can have Jessie just transition right now and watch her do an appropriate weight shift. So put that foot forward and just shift that weight appropriately so you can just shoot that leg forward and go back. So the two ways we challenge balance are we keep both knees down and look at our rotation, or we stay erect and see if we have a stride problem on either side. Now, this is a little bit difficult for anybody but a fitness client, so we're going to talk about an on-ramp to these holds. What's the next thing we do? We need a visual of carries. And I did a presentation with Dan John, I think we've got it on the archives, where we literally just show you walking and doing a carry with a suitcase, a front rack, and an overhead position, switching basically as you walk. But we can also do that in a stationary stance, just looking at our turns in those positions. So walking with a weight in 3 different positions, or just these 2 positions if somebody can't go overhead, is what we call the carries. And it's a little bit different than that overloaded, really heavy farmer's carry that we see people just really struggling to do. This is a carry that in many of our workshops, we've made people go for almost 10 minutes. So we want a load that's so light, you could bottom up the load, whether it's a kettlebell or a Y-bell or something else. But let me run through a few of the things that I'm going to be keying on as Jessie gets in position, because we're going to start this thing right on her back, where a lot of clients have to start, and I'm going to get her to start rotating and disassociating, but I'm going to give her a load. First, I want to go what I really mean by the holds and carries here is why. Well, we're here for awareness of stability, symmetry, and balance. That is the number one thing. And so if I put her in a position, I'm hoping that she becomes hyper aware. There's 2 things we're looking with: the way she's breathing and the way she's managing the load. How are we going to do this? We're going to explore rotations in different postures with loading and breathing. Well, what are we doing it for? There is a movement pattern that sent you here. You saw a movement pattern, you're wanting to offer some proprioception, stability, balance, awareness of symmetry. So I could be using these to fix too much tone in your posterior chain, demonstrated in a forward bend. We could have an asymmetry in your rotation, weight shifting in any one thing. But know what you're working on so you can check and see if what you did for stability, balance, or symmetry actually made a difference. Because when do we notice a change? Well, when we do corrective exercise, we notice quick changes when people have inappropriate tone. We notice slower changes when people have tissue problems. And a podcast we did just last week with an NBA strength coach, 20 years experience, he goes, I got my fascial guys and I got my high tone guys. My high tone guys warm up quick, but they're feeling a little fatigued toward the end of the game. The fascial guys, they're playing better in the second half of the game because it had a lot more to do with tissue warmth, lubrication, mitochondria, and stuff like that. So the slow responders to correctives think there's some tissue stuff going on, and maybe getting their toe touch 4 inches improved is better than maybe that miraculous toe touch that occurs, because that's all tone. And you don't change tissue that quickly. But when you're seeing miraculous changes in 4 to 6 minutes, you're doing something to really recalibrate their tone. And when you're doing something that's making that incremental progress that you're going to have to repeat, you're modeling tissue. Most people fall in between one of those, and so already know where your client is. So why are we doing it? Awareness. How are we doing it? We're going down a posture, not making exercises more remedial. What are we doing? You should pick a movement pattern target that you can revisit, like balance or bending or something like that. And what are we looking for? How quickly do they respond? Fast responders, think inappropriate muscle tone. Slow responders, think tissue problems. So Jessie's going to basically get in one of the easiest spinal positions we have, which is supported spine, And I'm going to have her bring her hips up so much so that she feels complete spinal contact right there. Now, I'm going to give her a few options, but the first one I'm going to do is a Y bell. And what I want you to do is just press that up, and as you lean the bell to your right, you're going to have to counterbalance yourself with your legs to the left. So there is no rhyme or reason why you move more than the other. Just create balance and awareness. Now there's some good cues here, and Jesse reminded me of these when we started messing around earlier today in the gym. Shut those armpits, pack those lats, drop those shoulders. The same position you'd be doing a carry in a month from now, I want your shoulder position there. But we get a lot of unnecessary hip flexor activity for people who may have a deconditioned core right here. So believe it or not, allowing her now to grab the ball and tuck back in really does give her more TA, but actually turns the hip flexors off a bit. The ball, such a neat surface, rotates very easily and doesn't restrict the motion. But what I'm looking for is her ability to dissociate here. Now, we have a lot of people that are scared of weights and stuff like that, but I'm really going to help calibrate Jesse. So I want you just to grab that yoke. I get these from Perform Better. They go around the neck, but they hold nicely. We often give breathing cues, but making people really, really aware of that base is we've got 20 pounds laying right there. We've got 15 pounds right here. Do the exact same drill with these three additions. What are they? The ball actually makes that rotation happen without the hip flexors being too much. This little stability right here helps her control her pelvic tilt, but also gives her a diaphragmatic cue. And now she's exploring, where do you turn better, on an inhale or an exhale, and is one side better than the other? Only two questions I've got for her right here. So I'm going to lean in so you can hear her comments, because this is real time. What are you seeing?
I rotate better on an inhale.
Okay.
A little pause, and then I come back on an exhale.
All right.
If you took the ball away, though, I don't know.
Right, because it's probably going to be a lot of hip flexor. And think about how the hip flexors, the diaphragm, the inner core act. So if you're aware of an asymmetry and that breathing helps you, I picked the right exercise, because we're right where we need to be, because more reps right now is going to make you hold better in a minute if we were to progress to that. Some people might be here for a week or two just removing this, and adding weight here, learning how to sort of be your own anchor instead of using all these props. So I want to go from a straight plane to sort of a PNF pattern. And what I want you to do is explore this pattern right here, even if you want to widen your arms a little bit, and there you go. And just use the appropriate rotation, but find a diagonal that works for you, and give me about 5 reps in that diagonal. And when you bring it down, keep it on that same line. So bring it, there you go. That's a whole different thing, keeping those shoulders, but keep it on that line right there, and do about 5, and use the counter rotation however you need, so you're not using your arms so much. There you go, good counter rotation. Obviously it's going to take more when she's above her head, and when she's coming down, she's keeping the center of mass low. Now once you get about 1 or 2 more reps there, I want you to reverse that diagonal and see if this amplifies the asymmetry that you felt in a straight plane, okay? So change that angle. Chops and lifts don't just need to be done with a Cook band or in kneeling. We can actually start right here. This is a safe space for total knees, total hips that aren't using their core correctly, and we can train their upper body, but we've got to be gentle with their low body. What's the problem with being here? This is a really good awareness place. Balance is getting better. She doesn't even know it yet, okay? Now, what are you feeling? Does one diagonal feel more challenging to you than the other?
This side.
Okay, what can you do to change that right now? Or make it easier for yourself? Does more leg action, more breathing action, or just not going as far with your arms?
More leg, more breathing, less arm movement.
Okay, all three, good.
Yeah, but the legs really did help.
All right, now do me a favor. Lead with your legs and breath, and let the arms be the last thing, because if you lead with your arms, you have to catch up with your breath and your legs. So lead with your legs and breath and see if that side gets a little bit easier. So initiate the movement low to high, and you've already got a base to pull against. And that may be the entire session, because now that she knows what she's looking for, I walk away and I'm going to let you actually go back and forth a few sets left to the right. And the first thing I'm going to take away is see if you can still do it without that input right there. Hey, you can make that input without the weight, but it sure does help your awareness. And pull up on that ball just a little bit. There you go. That's about all it'll take right there to be that pelvic stability. So the first thing I want you guys to understand is, before we even get to tall kneeling and half kneeling, I think it's really important just to learn to disassociate on your back. But not just in the form of a pretzel stretch. This is serious stuff. It's taking a lot of concentration, and she's strong. She can rip out a bunch of pull-ups, but I've actually got her sort of thinking more core-oriented. If I can take you to an easy position, because you saw how many reps she did, where she can still appreciate breathing and a little bit of struggle on one side, then I fit that first why statement. There's an awareness now of stability, balance, or symmetry. And we made it so easy that you can focus on breathing and the way you're stabilizing, and not the task. It's not a complex task. And I think that's important, because when we get up to holds, I don't want to have to overcoach that. I want you to be appropriate there. And we may, and Greg Rose and I have noticed this working on a lot of rotational athletes, when we bring you up a level to, say, kneeling or half kneeling, your rotation challenge could be in the opposite direction. Because the definition of a stability problem is that inconsistency. Every time we change posture, you could have difficulty going the other way or the different weight shift. If you've got a mobility problem, it's going to be consistent regardless of the position. So if we got a frozen shoulder here, that shoulder's frozen from flat on your back to standing, and it's going to change that movement pattern. But when we see that pattern or that difficulty, say you may have more challenge rotating in the opposite direction, that's okay. That's a stability problem. Every time we change your hip load, your hips can sometimes influence that. If the person is pretty well put together and not really challenged here, and how do you know you're not challenged? You don't need the ball, you don't need this, and you take on a lot more weight. Okay? But I was able to get a challenge out of her there. So you can do your diagonals, you can do anything, but I advance a lot of people to more of a fitness warm-up right here. If this was originally a problem, nice of me to get you all fatigued before we started that. So that's where this would end. And it could take us 2 sessions to get there, or it could take us 2 months to get there, but there is no rush.